What do you think is one leadership lesson that has really stayed with you throughout your career?
I think I learned from my older brothers that it's best to look, listen, and learn first, and then try to execute. I think a lot of people think more about the execution of things as opposed to the purpose of what they're doing.
Hello everyone, I'm Alexander and welcome to a live edition of Trailheads Titans, coming to you from Resourcing Tomorrow 2025 here in London, UK. Today I'm joined by Daniel Kirwin, CEO of Beacon Events. Thank you so much for being here and joining us live.
Pleasure to be here.
Could you please introduce yourself and share briefly about what you do?
Well, as I said, I'm Daniel Kirwin. I'm the Chief Executive and co-founder of Beacon Events. So we're a global conference and exhibition company, event company. Lately, we focus almost exclusively on the mining industry. So we run events around the world. Particularly, we have IMARC in Australia. We have Resourcing Tomorrow here in London. And then we do some Mines and Money events around the world. And we partner very closely with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the Future Minerals Forum.
If you don't mind me asking, what did you study and how did that turn into leading a global events company?
Well, it's a long story, actually. I went to the University of Virginia in the United States, and I was an Asian Studies major. But if you go back a little bit, I was fortunate when I was 15 and 17 years old. I got to travel to Asia, and I went to Hong Kong. And I really liked Hong Kong. For some reason, I like big cities. And then when I went to university, I decided to study Chinese history. My Chinese history is much better than my Chinese language. And then pretty much after university, I went out to Hong Kong to look for a job. I didn't have a job, but Hong Kong's a very dynamic place. And I was able, after 6 weeks of hitting the pavement and talking to people, I had 3 job offers, and one of them was a conference company. And that's where I ended up, and I've been in the same place ever since.
You're not a miner, like you mentioned, but you've probably spent more time with mining CEOs than many people in the industry. So what first do you think pulled you really into the mining industry or the mining world, and why do you think you stayed?
Well, I think that once you dig a little deep into the mining industry, you'll discover that basically everything in this world is either mined or farmed. And I think the mining side of the world is underappreciated, is underknown about all the processes and the planning and the safety issues and the technology. So actually, almost everything that people are talking about today has something to do with the mining industry as well. So I think the more that you get involved with it, the more that you realize that there's so much good that can come from mining.
From your vantage point, what do people outside the industry most misunderstand really about mining? And how do your events try to really correct that story?
That's a really good question. I think that firstly, the size and scale and the time necessary to do mines. So one of our speakers, and I think you might have interviewed him, Robert Friedland. Robert likes to say, it took him 27 years to be an overnight success. I think most people outside of the mining industry don't realize how long things take. And right now, when we're talking about the need for critical minerals, the securing your supply chain and such, it's something the mining industry has been talking about for a long time. Now, much of the world is talking about it, but I don't think the world realizes how long it's going to take to achieve some of those goals. So I think timing is something that is really not known very well. I think the amount of the size and scale, not only the size of mines themselves, but the scale, the amount of people that need to work on them. It's a huge industry. And again, I don't think the general public actually, realizes that. And then finally, I'd say technology. Because mining is such it has such huge scale, but the costs, the margins are very small. So miners have been using technology for hundreds of years, just a little bit more advanced technology now, to try to find cost savings, to find better ways to find things. And so I think that it really brings a lot of industries together to try to make sure that end product is available and at a better price.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to interview Robert Friedland yet, but I think in the close future, I might have that opportunity.
I'll take that back. I'll try to arrange that for you then.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that would be great. If you look 10 to 15 years ahead, what do you think mining conferences will look like when my generation is in the room as professional and not just students?
Well, I think it's hard. It's even hard for me to tell you what next year's event is going to be like, let alone what 15 years is going to be like. But I do think that the common themes that run through a mining event and most events around the world, actually, and certainly global events, is firstly, it has to be a must-attend event. So there has to be a reason why people want to attend it. It has to usually be an annual event. So people know Resourcing Tomorrow is always held the first week of December, and it probably will always be the first week of December in 15 years from now. I think that you have to listen to what people want to know this year, or so a lot of research goes into the event. It's not like we pop up and a day before we have all this. So it's actually just, what are the current themes? What are the current issues? What are the problems that people are facing?
What do you think is one leadership lesson that has really stayed with you throughout your career and something that you still really rely on today?
I think I learned early on. I'm the youngest in my family, so I might have learned some of this from my older brothers. But it's best to look, listen, and learn first, and then try to execute. And I think a lot of people, I like to say, don't put the cart in front of the horse. I think a lot of people think more about the execution of things as opposed to the purpose of what they're doing. And I started out in sales, actually, that the best way to make a sale is to listen to what the customer has to say, or the prospective customer has to say, learn from what they're saying, and then try to adapt and then find that product. The event industry, we are selling ideas in space. And so it's really, as I said, to look, listen, and learn from your customers, from your mentors, from your professors, etc.
If you don't mind me asking, how many older siblings do you have?
I have four older brothers. I had four older brothers, and I have a younger sister.
Your business is literally built on conversations and relationships. So for someone my age who doesn't really have a network yet, and what do you think are 2 to 3 practical things that we can start doing now to really start building real relationships, not just like LinkedIn?
Well, Alexandra, I might correct you there. I bet you do have a network. It might be a smaller network it needs to get. So a network starts with 1, okay? Or maybe a network starts with 2, and you use those contacts to meet other people. So there's always a network, whether it's a small or larger network, you always want to be improving. And as I said, I think, as I say, look, listening, and learning, talking to people, making sure that you're providing some benefit to them as well. I try to tell people that, particularly when you're using your contacts, you want to be in contact with them all the time. You don't want to over-connect with them, but you don't want to under-connect with them. And if you're going to call someone for a favor or a request or you need some advice, ideally you should have already been speaking to them. So it's not like, oh, I haven't seen you, Bob, for a while. Can I ask you something? So it's engagement. And I think in today's social media and the ability to text and communicate with people, you really can stay connected, and then you can call upon these people to help you later on.
Events usually really look smooth from the outside, but I'm sure they aren't always. So can you share a time when something went badly wrong behind the scenes and what you learned as a leader from fixing it?
Well, hopefully in front of the house, no one knew what was going on, so I can't really tell you the secrets behind the scenes. But I think in general, if you're well prepared, again, if your team is willing to learn from their mistakes, that's very, very important. So I like to say sometimes in Beacon that we can make a lot of mistakes, but I hope that we're the quickest to learn from those mistakes and try not to make those mistakes again.
Yeah, I really liked everything how you did it here in Resourcing Tomorrow, and I'm really happy to have the privilege to come here and interview all these people, really interesting people like you. So just before we wrap up, if you could give one big piece of advice to a 14-year-old, someone like me, or like those listening, about success, failure, and learning, maybe things that failure has taught you that success never could, or the other way around, things like that, what do you think it would be?
Well, I think, like you just said, you need to expect failure. There's going to be bumps along the road, and you have to adapt to those. Now, you can plan for them, you can think about those things, but just like you talked about the problems that might happen behind the scenes, you need to be able to react to those things and be prepared for those things. You never know what the obstacles are going to be, but use your experience. If you've been listening, and learning, experience will tell you that chances are you've probably been through this type of problem before. I've been doing events for 30 years now, and sometimes I experience something for the first time. For me, it's quite rare right now that we have some issues that I haven't experienced, but when they do, I apply the same things. I ask people, I talk to people, I do some research, and you execute as best as you can at that particular time.
Thank you so much, Daniel Kirwin, for joining us live at Resourcing Tomorrow 2025 and for sharing your insights with Trailheads and Titans. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Trailheads and Titans for more conversations with global leaders who are blazing new trails. Until next time.